Welcome, Jenny. Thank you for being here.
Gwen, very good to be here.
Yeah, so I really want to start with talking about your hopes and dreams for AI and allowing the conversation to go from there, because I think that when we talk about hopes and dreams, quickly thereafter, some of our fears or uncertainties or our questions or curiosities kind of arise. So putting that question out there to you, what are some of your hopes and dreams for education? Not for education, for AI. And maybe education too.
Well, they're totally connected. So I'm actually glad you asked the accidental question, because my hope for education is that every child is seen, is understood as a learner, and is supported. And I don't think that's happening, not to any fault of teachers. The system of education makes that very difficult, especially in public state system. So my hope and dream for AI is that more support, more coaching, more help, more when my daughter comes home and she's super confused by her chemistry and I cannot help her because I suck at chemistry. And my husband sits down with her and has the patience to figure out where her holes are and stay with her as she gets frustrated and get her to the end of it so that she feels better about going into a test. I hope an AI teaching assistant and chatbot can do that. And I got a little bit of I was working with ChatGPT recently on a question I had on the book I'm writing. And it said at the end, it knows that I'm writing a book. It said, stay with it. You know, writing a book is hard work and you're doing important work. And it was like, I needed to hear that in the moment, right? And I am a 50-year-old woman. And if I needed to hear that from a chatbot, I imagine a 13-year-old struggling with algebra would really benefit from that. So I think there's huge possibilities to personalize, to support, to meet kids where they are that the system can't do for a variety of reasons.
And so I love the idea of the being like an assistant at home. How do you see it being, like, just even imagining throughout your daughter's day? Like if we could, in this ideal scenario, have AI be supportive, what are some of the ways that you would want that support to be there?
Well, so if we're thinking about it in school, I would definitely think more around assessment. So I think the idea that rather than taking a GCSE and having it be national news on, one day of 2 years of your high school career, and that becomes this insanely impactful set of months and tests, and that every day you're going in and you're being tested on stuff and the AI is figuring out where you are and it's generating interesting, personalized, dynamic content and it's giving it back to you and it's measuring your mastery of subjects. And then we don't have to do the sort of national GCSE day. That would be definitely support for that. But while you're leading up to whatever kind of assessment you want to do, and you've got what Salkan, I've always loved this term that he uses, Swiss cheese holes in your learning, right? He founded Khan Academy because he was tutoring his niece and he could see that she had these holes in her knowledge, and everyone has holes in their knowledge, and technology is much better at figuring out what those are and then helping you fill those in. And so I would hope that in a class supporting a teacher, you're allowing the technology is allowing the teacher to do both their amazing content expertise as well as the sort of very human thing of looking and seeing how kids are and where they need to be. Not babysitting, not that sort of, oh, you be the caretaker and the AI will do the sophisticated stuff. The teachers are the masters, but they're really, strung pretty thin. And so I think the idea of the technology supporting the learning under the direction of the teacher, getting more support along the way and getting assessed more frequently and in a much lower stakes environment just sounds like a better mental health recipe for me for teenagers.
Yeah, and then when you think about the amplification of humanity, like how we can amplify our humanity, if the AI is doing all of that, what is our role? What do you see us doing and being, and how can we be the best version of ourselves?
I mean, I think we all know the thing that makes us happiest in the world is relationships, right? So we need relationships with peers, with teachers, with grownups, we need to know that we're loved. I don't want to ask teachers to love their students. I think that's a pretty big ask, but I think letting the technology do some of the marking and some of the lesson planning and some of the assessing frees them up to see their students and all of their humanity and support them in that way. But I don't want to take away from also the expertise of teacher. I fear that this conversation often is, oh, the technology can do the content and the teachers can just love the kids. I think that's a little unfair because I think teachers train and are experts in their content areas and they want to do both. And I think hopefully this allows them to regain the balance of seeing what's in front of them and figuring out how to support that small, developing, vulnerable human being.
And what would that, I love the word balance there. What would that balance look like, feel like, again, imagining your daughter or, just like young people in schools, what would that balance bring?
I think, what would that balance bring? I think one of the main reasons kids feel disengaged from school is they feel very anonymous. They feel a cog in a machine. They feel they're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing, and the system doesn't care about them. And systems don't care about people. People care about people.
Yeah,
so the teacher is the person in the room who can care about the student and who can understand the student and who can ask that student, how are you today? You look sad. I don't think an AI is going to do that anytime soon. It might sense that you feel a little sad and whatever you put into the computer, and maybe, facial recognition, maybe I'm being very naive here, but it won't feel as good to be hugged by a computer as it will by a teacher or a parent or a grown-up that cares about you. So I think it's really, when you think about, there's a, let me think about this before I put this out there. When we look at how to mitigate stress, right? Stress hormone is cortisol. The antidote to that is oxytocin, which is the love hormone, which is what is produced by humans and not by AI. And so we don't have a lot of opportunities to generate the moments that create the oxytocin that can reduce the cortisol, which in English means when kids are stressed, they need support and love. And if we can use technology to free up time so that the teachers can offer that oxytocin moment, sounds like a drug commercial, but can offer that moment of support and love, I think we will see mental health numbers come down. I think we will see rates of anxiety and depression come down when kids feel seen and understood and heard. And that will not be by a computer. That will be by teachers, by grown-ups, by parents, by coaches, by people around them.
And if teachers have the time back because AI is serving some of those other pieces, there's time for that care and that excellence of subject matter expertise.
Inspiration. I mean, humans are inspiring. When a human,
totally.
I've just interviewed over 100 kids for my book, and one thing that is just consistent across the board is when a grown-up is excited and engaged and energized around a subject or an issue, or it's infectious, right? And kids pick up on that. They know when the grown-ups around them are engaged. And, something that makes me super sad in this reporting is that when we ask teenagers or adolescents, who do you go to for support? They almost never say teachers. And we say, why don't you go to your teachers? Do you not think they care about you? And they say, well, no, we know they care about us. And you say, why don't you go to them? Oh, they look so stressed. They're very conscious of their teachers' stress levels, and they don't want to make that worse. And so anything we can do to free up the grown-ups to be there for the kids, to support them emotionally and academically, and to stretch them and inspire them and, animate the room that they're in, I think that's a huge opportunity.
And what else is your book writing interview process highlighting for you in terms of what we're talking about?
So the main thing is that kids feel very anonymous. They feel very disengaged from school. They are sad. They feel quite rudderless. There's a tremendous sense of meaninglessness to it all. We're having to work super hard for something that doesn't mean very much to you. That is like the definition of hell, right? Having to toil away for something that doesn't actually resonate to you. And it's a big ask, and we wonder why kids are anxious and depressed. And I think, we look at social media, and I place plenty of blame there. Look at rising competition, look at climate change, look at polarization, look at all of these issues in the world. They're all very impactful. I wouldn't take away from any one of them. But I think spending 6 to 7 to 8 hours a day, both bored and overwhelmed, which is an incredibly hard thing to pull off, is horrible. And that's what kids are feeling. And I don't blame educators. I think there's a huge number of forces conspiring, state standards and rising competition levels and inequality, a lot of forces. But the bottom line is that's how kids feel. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart, honestly.
Thank you so much for your time today, Jenny.
My pleasure.
Yeah, beautiful.